Pragathi Central School, an institution which has been striving relentlessly to bring top-of-the-line facilities and value-added education to its students without entering the race for commercialization. The management of Pragathi Central School ensures that the revenue earned from the school goes back to upgrade the quality of training provided to the students. It utilizes the surplus revenue to run a hospital with state-of-the-art facilities and also educating about 560 students from underprivileged backgrounds. The school began its journey in 1994 with state board syllabus with a vision to facilitate quality education to students at an affordable cost. Later, in the year 2010, the CBSE syllabus was introduced in the school. Pragathi Central School believes in social and moral values and in three attributes: security, comfort, and happiness to the students and the staff. The school has over 3,000 students today, and the management decided to start 2 feeder schools to support this. All this without any marketing or sales promotions. The school believes in giving back to nature, and to make this happen, students run a terrace garden where they grow a number of plants which help them to understand and appreciate nature better. The mission of the school is Rise to Reach. In this conversation, Suresh Kocharal speaks to Mrs. V. N. Chakravarthy, principal of Pragathi Central School, about the school, its philosophy, the academic rigor, and lots more. Welcome to Brainfeed EdTalks, powered by Tutoroot Technologies. That is Pragathi Central School here near Nizampet, opposite JNTU. And that is a location that has many residential colonies around. This school serves as a fulcrum point for all that. Started in 1994, the school presently has over 3,000 students. The school also is fed by 2 feeder schools and has a total of 4,000 students in all. Today, we are here to speak to the principal of the school, Mrs. V. N. Chakravarthy. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. At the outset, you have over 25 years of teaching experience and then, of course, being a principal of the school, and before this, working with other schools. How has been your journey over the last 2.5 decades?
Well, I think the very journey for every educationist is tremendously refreshing because we work with children. And this 25 plus years of experience, working in different capacities, I must say. I haven't been the principal right from the beginning. So I started my career as a preschool teacher, as an assistant teacher for nursery, and then moved, from time to time, level to level. And this is where I am today. And I think, it is very cherishing because having worked with every age group of students, we know the challenges better. And that is the reason why we are able to cater to all students of different age groups. And being a teacher, also allows us to understand what are the problems there at their level. And empathy, becomes the central part of the whole administration.
Today, a child's major development happens in the school level, in the formative years, then the growing up years, and finally when they graduate, that is, come out in the 9th and 10th, and sometimes even 11th and 12th. The school plays a holistic development in the entire process. The parents expect that once we pay the fees, it's a job of the school to take care of everything. How do you balance all this in an institution like yours? Because it's not easy to manage in a locality like this where there's a lot of residential apartments around and people naturally expect the school to have the same standard, the same expectations as many other schools have.
Well, this school is definitely a different experience for me because we have children from different socio-economic backgrounds. The initial years that I was here, we also catered to the first generation learners, and looking at school as a very, very pivotal, aspect of a child's growth, like you said, is something that we totally have to agree with. All said and done, though the school plays a very, very big role, I think, the parent communities are pretty much active these days, trying to see how they can cater to the growth of their own children as well. I think once upon a time when we were young and we were studying, it was the school that played the total role, and our parents barely had, any participation. But unlike those years, I see that parents are very active, they are very engaging, involving in the very journey. And this school, in the center of this entire locality, we find that parents join their kids also in schools like this because of the distance. They do not want their children to travel much. Besides that, every parent is looking at a child from different dimensions. The child has to be good at academics. Is it possible for a child to balance in co-curriculars and things like that? So we run the school in a very, very different manner. We have children who have topped at various sports in the national level, international level. Also children who won at the CBSE nationals. Now, when we look at children and the aspirations of parents, what we tell parents is, if you have a dream for your child, you can approach us and we will see how we can set the road map ahead. Now, the kind of infrastructure that we have in the school here, we cannot cater to all sports and games. All the same, what we do is, if I have a parent coming into the office and saying, I want my child to be a swimmer, ma'am, and this has been my dream. So what is it that you can do from this side of it? So right from the time that the child hasn't even been in the pool, we give that 50% concession to that parent and the child. So we allow the child to come, according to the swimming classes and the schedules that they have, because his dream is firstly a swimmer and then the academics. So we try to nurture and cater to that interest that a parent has. That besides, we also have many children today, who have a lot of special needs, right? And it is again schools who are at the forefront telling the parents that maybe there is this kind of an issue with this child. Maybe the child needs, therapies in these areas. One thing is, in schools that I find a challenge is, we have teachers who do the normal B.Ed, but we do not pretty much have many teachers who are into the various, specializations of special education. That is a challenge, and the growing need for special educators has also become immense, because children coming into schools today, I would say at least 5 to 10% have these kind of issues, and it's not possible for schools to have all the types of special educators in the school, because one is, we do not know whether we'll have children of that particular specialized kind of need for therapies. Secondly, we do not also know whether a parent would accept it or not. So even for such scenarios, what we do is, whether it's a child whose parent wants him to do very well in co-curriculars, or a child who maybe has the need for therapies, we give them that 50% concession. So we allow children to come to school around half day, okay, and the remaining half day they're allowed to go for the therapies. So usually these children who have these special needs are those kids who need, immense social skills. So they are sent to normal schools to socialize, to develop their communication, the social esteem and self-esteem and things like that. So we cater to all of that in such a way that there is no financial burden on the child as well, on the parent as well. So we've had many children who have been into sports, into various co-curriculars, and all of these children pay only 50% of the fee. Now we do have the policy of, achievers. Like I have an international chess player, okay, I have national players in shuttle badminton. They all have those, scholarships anyway, that I think all schools do, give those scholarships once a child achieves something. But we begin right from the time, the child has not even gone to the sports arena. From there, we begin the 50% concession. I think that is what I always take pride about, in thanking the management for allowing me to do something like this. Because then, we can at least enable a parent, experiment with his dreams that he has for his child, So that way we feel very special.
I think that's wonderful, because we have children with autism, we have children with ADHDs, all those kind of issues. But over the last 2 years, there's been a different kind of challenge. With the pandemic coming in, the lockdowns and the subsequent lockdowns, and again, a kind of a hybrid model between online and offline. How has your school risen to this challenge? Because Not every child may have the same bandwidth at home. Not every child may have the same kind of laptops or computers or phones at home. How did the school manage to get the educators on one side and the children on the other side to connect up during this last 2 years? It must have been a big challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a challenge, but when we know that we are rising up to this challenge with a purpose, I think it becomes easy for all of us. And the other end of this whole challenge is the child looking out, for that support from the school. So that is what actually made all schools rise up, to reach out to the child during this pandemic, even if it's virtually. Now, like I said before, we have children who come from various, backgrounds. And rightly said, we have children who might not even have those gadgets at home. So we had to, devise different, programs to ensure that education reaches, every child. That lesson that was designed reaches every child. So for this, our first attempt was to make video lessons, with the teachers. Teachers made the video lessons, sent it across. So whenever the child had the phone, because obviously a child who's not able to get that kind of infrastructure, I'm talking about the digital infrastructure, has to depend on the parent's mobile phone or parent's laptop. So we allowed the children to follow the video lessons whenever the parent's device was free for use. And later on, towards the afternoons, we kept that slot open for children to have their doubts clarified with the teachers. So all our teachers' numbers are now, openly shared with the parents. And besides giving academic support, I think what I would really take pride about talking about my team of teachers is they reached out to families in the toughest of times, empathizing with families, because we've had situations where children's families lost loved ones and children were sick. Even, parents were down with COVID, in some cases hospitalized. So we had our teachers reach out to them, call them, very so often, find out how they are doing. Okay. And that, I think, more than the academics, it was that empathy that connected, schools and families. And this is something that I would always be grateful to my team of teachers for.
Now, when you talk of your teachers, obviously the entire pool of teachers come from different backgrounds. Some of them would have worked in international schools, some of them come from the state boards, some of them were self-taught, and they all come from different backgrounds. But once they come into the classroom, the teaching is unified. The methodology that a school adopts has their own style of teaching, their own methodology of teaching, and their own principles of teaching. Now, how do you ensure that you have a standardized approach of getting in teachers? There must be a lot of training that goes on. Can you just enumerate on that? How do you do it?
Yes, we look at different pedagogy in the school. When we look at teachers coming into the classroom, now I have some classes that have multiple sections. When I say multiple, for example, my grade 6, I have about 15 sections only in grade
And how many
6.
would be the average number of students?
We have about 500 plus students.
Now, per class, how much would that be?
On an average, I think around 300. 300, anything
But
lowest
one
being,
section would have how many?
one section in the lower classes have around 30, 32, and the high school around 35.
That would give them enough individual attention.
Yes.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So here, when we look at so many sections, we also have to look at that uniformity in pedagogy. So I literally sit with every single lesson right from nursery to grade 10. I may not be specialized in mathematics or sciences, but I'd like to know, from the student's perspective, whether that lesson is going to reach out to me, right? So whether it is a nursery lesson plan or a grade 10 lesson plan, it is the same lesson plan that goes to all sections of the school. Now we have 2 feeder schools as well. This school as is caters to 3,000 plus students, and we have 2 feeder schools, and all of this makes up to 4,600 students in the school. So that uniformity is something that parents, want. What is happening at this, main campus, this is the same that is happening there in the feeder schools. And we ensure that uniformity. So when we do, a lesson plan, what is very important for my teachers is to look out for the V, the A, and the K. So every lesson, the teachers have to devise visuals, auditory, and kinesthetics. So every lesson plan that you see has the visual quotient, auditory quotient, and the kinesthetic quotient. Besides this, there is an outside the classroom activity. So even if it is just teaching, bring them out into the classroom, make them sit under a tree or on the staircase or, somewhere on the ground, and do that lesson a little differently. So that outside the classroom activity is also very important for us, because children sitting, right from morning to evening, though they have co-curriculars in between, I think it's a refresher for a child to come out and listen to that lesson from the same teacher maybe, but in a different, environment, right? So we have outside the classroom activity, which is compulsory. Besides that, if I'm learning geometry, why am I learning geometry? So my math lesson plans particularly have, the introduction of who actually discovered this concept of, geometry or matrices or mensuration, and a little bit of, tribute to that person who brought this out, for us to study, and why and where, is it applicable. So that real life connect is very important for us. Whether it is in the lower classes, for example, we have, let us say in grade 1, when we have a lesson on hygiene, children learn that they have to brush twice a day. So if there is a question, connected with that, how many times do you brush a day? Children write, we brush twice a day. They get 2 marks for it. But how many of them are really implementing this in real life is a question. So that real life application is again compulsory. So my lesson plan has the V, the A, the K, real life application, outside the classroom activity, and another most important thing to make it easy and interesting for children is the mnemonics. We ensure that every lesson has at least one memory technique for them to remember the most critical aspect of that particular concept and lesson. So this is how differently we design the lesson plans, and it's a beautiful experience sitting with the teachers, getting to understand, that okay, this is what this is where you're coming from, this is how you're going to deliver this lesson, and I sit here from the representing the student community to see whether I'm able to understand this, whether I'm able to understand, enjoy it, whether I'm able to get involved in this whole process. So there is a lot of singing and dancing also that we do as part of kinesthetic, because music is something that is an integral part of learning. Today CBSE is coming up with, when I say today, it's not today, I mean for the last couple of years, art integration is pretty much compulsory in our pedagogy. So we end to end use art integration in all our lesson plans.
I think that's wonderful, because when when I'd gone on a trip to Shantiniketan, I remember children there sitting in the open under the trees, and that's a regular for them. It's not that it's and also reading a research paper the other day that most of the children who sit inside the classroom, because they are dimly lit often, they tend to develop eye issues. They have short sight issues and all that. And when they go out, and that's what the researchers are suggesting, that they should go out of the classroom at least for an hour in a day to get that bright sunlight and actually learn. That's wonderful. Now, also this fact that when you talk of teaching and all that, there is this expectation from, especially in this southern Indian states, on IIT, JEE and NEET. Most often parents come with the demand to the school that I want my child to get into IITs. And now I call that unrealized dreams, because the parents wouldn't have been able to get into an IIT or get a medicine seat, so they want the child to get it. But as is often the case, which I have seen over my last 3 decades of journalistic experience, is that the child may not be cut out for that, but the parents push the child. Now, as an educator, as a principal of a school, even though you may be offering the NEET, JEE coaching and all that, how do you counsel the parents and tell them that, look, this child is cut out for it or this child is not cut out for it? How do you ensure that?
We do offer, IMF in our school as well. Okay, so when I say IMF, it is IIT Medicine Foundation. So we offer this from grade 6 onwards. Okay, and as we keep moving into the higher classes, then this is either before the school hours or after the school hours. So earlier on, before this COVID, lockdown, we had these classes in the evenings, and children would go home around 5:30. This year, it was just yesterday, I had a webinar with the parents, and as per the teachers' feedback that I have also, I mean towards the fag end of day, when we have children already tired, sitting for this kind of a foundation is getting little less rewarding, is what my teachers have told me. So we thought, I think it would be better for these children to have one slot in the morning. So when I say morning, around 8 o'clock they reach school. They I think 7:50 odd they reach school. 8 o'clock to 8:45 we have one slot of IMF. So only children, who take this particular curriculum come to school during that time. The rest of the children, they come the regular time, 8:45. But these children, they come little earlier and they take the first slot of this. And again in the evening after the, school gets concluded, we have another slot for them. Now, we do have a lot of parents who want their children to take this curriculum. Now, one side of it is, like you said, parents have big dreams. I couldn't make it, so maybe my child should, is one part of it. But there are also a lot of parents who feel it's okay if my child doesn't do it, but why not push that, line a little more? We are absolutely okay even if they're not able to do it, but a little bit of extra knowledge. It's always, a better thing for students is what parents feel. In our school, what we do, we don't make it compulsory, firstly. Secondly, we don't give it to students whose math and science scores are less than 70%. So we take the consolidated score of their performance in all the CBSE exams, and if at all we feel that okay, this child has that very unique interest, she or he can do it, he can push a little higher and take up this curriculum, only then we say that the child is shortlisted, right? But we also have parents who come and say, my child wasn't shortlisted, but we still feel that he or she can. So yes, then, we have to sit the parent down, get the parent to understand that, children's aspirations could be different from that of yours, right? And in very, very, difficult cases, what we say is, all right, fine, because we don't want the children also to be sandwiched when they go back home. So we keep it open for maybe 3 months to 4 months. We give that leverage to the child to take up the curriculum. And if we find that the child is getting stressed out and the child is not able to do well in any of these IMF scores, then we again call the parent back. As per our discussion, we thought, we'll give it time and we feel this is stressful. So when we negotiate with the parent in a way that he can understand, I think it is not a challenge to convince parents and tell them that maybe this child, he has that interest towards, language arts or humanities or something else.
Perfectly okay to take
it. It's perfectly okay. And at this point in time, I must tell you, whatever initiative we have come out with, whether it is IMF or anything that we do in the school, I have more than 95% support from parents. I would very boldly say even 100% support. So all initiatives taken up by the school, that kind of support and collaboration that we get from parents is really worth, the working in this organization. Because, if parents don't understand it from the school's point of view, from the educator's point of view, and from the child's point of view, it becomes very difficult. But we have not had those challenges. To quote one example, this year we had to advance the transport timings for our school. So if you travel this, road, this is the dead end that we have, near the main gate. And we have a small bylane this side and another bylane, diagonally opposite the school. It is very difficult for the buses, the cars, the bikes. Then I have quite a few children, even my kids who are as young as grade 4, who come by bicycles to school as well. So this school catering about 3,000 plus students, I have only about 12 to 14 buses. And I have more than 80% of the school or 90% of the school coming by their own conveyance. So the need for, school transport is very less in this school because I have parents living in the vicinity of the school.
They come and drop their children.
Yeah. So we have either children, who have been living here and they have taken admission, or children who have got admission and then, maybe they moved into this colony because it is close by, proximity factor. Now, in a scenario like this, we have about 12 to 14 buses plying the same time. Then I have cars, bikes, all of this, because I have more number of own, transport students in the school. So I felt somewhere that it's going to be very difficult to have the same timing, because before the COVID also, we've understood that children who come to school by, school bus, they are invariably coming in late because we have a lot of bottlenecks around, this Pragathi Nagar colony also. The biggest bottleneck we have is the lake. And we in our trial round in the month of May, understood that there is a significant rise of personal vehicles on the road now because of COVID. So that's what, when we had this awareness session, we had Mr. Bhaskar, who is the inspector from the Traffic Training Institute, who oriented our students and gave that session to the drivers, school bus drivers. He was actually telling me, in the conversation, that the number of personal vehicles has increased because of COVID. People do not want to use public transport. So we've understood this entire scenario, and I had a webinar with the parents. I told the parents, children, as this is, they are coming late, the school transport children. So is there a possibility, for you to say a yes if we advance the timings, but because that's the only way out, because this is a dead end, the buses cannot reverse here at the same time. And a yes for an answer is what I expected. Besides that, I had so many parents who said it was a very innovative idea. So that is the kind of support that we get from parents. Anything that we do, when we are able to explain the logic behind and we are able to reason it out, I think we get that kind of a support from parents. And that is something that I always am thankful, to the parent community. And of course, teachers this side, because we have to have teachers also, some of them come early, take the classes for the transport kids now. So my transport students, they come to school by 7:45. Their first period begins around 8 o'clock. 8 to 8:40 is their first period. And they finish their school by 2:30. The buses leave by 2:45. So much before the traffic, becomes very cumbersome, children reach school. And even before the other school buses and, the rest of the traffic is on the road, children are almost nearing their homes. So that way, anything that we do, there is always a yes for an answer from my parent community. And that makes it really worth, like I said before, working in this organization.
Now, today's children obviously are stressed out. You rightly said they are stressed out. Their transport or education, they spend 1/3 of their time in the school. And, 1/3 of the entire day, 24 hours they spend in the school. Now, many children in India, especially, are taught that if you fail in life, academically or otherwise, that's the end of it. We see a lot of bad decisions being taken by children. But along the way, you definitely would play the role of a counselor more than anybody else. But do you see those red flags coming up? Do you train your teachers to understand and tell children that it's okay to fail in life? Nothing wrong with it. It is how you pick up and run from there. That's important.
Yeah. This is a question, that we constantly keep thinking about. And when I look at, my students and my teachers, firstly, if the school, from the higher heads, if there is no pressure from us on the teachers, then there is no pressure from the teachers on the students, whether it is from us sitting here or from the parents. Now, when we look at that, the pressure or the stress in terms of performance in academics, or even otherwise in co-curriculars also, we always tell the children that the opposite of failure is not success, and the opposite of success is not failure. Okay, you can never be successful without having experienced failures. I think any person so far who has been successful in whichever magnitude, big or small, I think, they would have experienced failures. No person can ever be successful. And it is not about, being successful at school level. It is about being successful in life. There are so many students, whom we have taught in our, earlier years. And, that kind of alumni that we see today, some children we would have felt, what is this child going to do when he's going to grow up? Would he ever make something out of himself? And believe me, Mr. Suresh, those children are doing, extraordinarily well. Extraordinarily well. So we talk to them about so many, case studies, stories. It is not about how you can manage your success. Success is very beautifully managed and it's very easy to do. But in a situation when you fail, how do you manage that situation? Do you get depressed and feel that it's the end of the world? Or do you feel, yeah, this is another step for me to try better? That is what we teach. That is what we teach children. And even when my children come to me and say, ma'am, today we are going to this school, for this inter-school competition, I only tell them one thing: just enjoy yourselves. Okay, I'm not worried about what you get back. Just enjoy, learn. If you feel that the team, opposite you is doing better, see how they're doing it. Okay, come back with those very strong, ideas of how you can do better. So that is what we tell the children. So far, not a single time did I ask a child, to do well because you have to get this trophy back to the school, or do well because, we need to be known for this in the school. Never. You're going to, participate, enjoy yourself. Your job is only to go to that school, enjoy, and come back. That's it.
As we close this conversation, of course, you have been a recipient of many awards, Atiti Devo Bhava by Brainfeed, and then British Council, and numerous awards, including state awards. Now, when you look at yourself as an academician over 25 years, when you look at the school that you are in, do you feel that the world of education has changed, and maybe it will even change going forward?
It has drastically changed. Drastically. If I have to go back to the years that I was a beginner, as a teacher, to what it is today, there has been a lot of changes, sea change, I would say. And this is not going to stop here. Okay. As we keep moving ahead, I think the best thing that we in the field of education need to nurture is how to adapt and stay adept. This is where, we have to look at, because this COVID has taught us a lot. Overnight we had to learn the different tools, as to how to do these online classes. And I must tell you, Mr. Suresh, the very journey was so cherishing, because so many times in the class when the teacher was stuck, or when I was stuck doing something, it is a child who would unmute and say, ma'am, you need to go to the right corner and click this button to get this, going. So that very journey was so mutually enriching for both educators and, the kids. So this is not going to stop here. I think, there are more changes that are going to come, and all we can do is just stay tuned, adapt, and give your best.
Thank you, Mrs. Chakravarthy. It was a wonderful conversation that we had with you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mrs. Chakravarthy of Pragathi Central School here in Hyderabad. A conversation about her journey over the years, from being a teacher to being a principal of a school and managing something like 3,000 plus students in an atmosphere of a residential locality. That's a challenge she has risen up to with her team of teachers and, of course, her students. Thank you for watching Brainfeed EdTalks, brought to you by Tutoroot Technologies.